Saturdays with Billy Butler.
BBC Radio Merseyside.
We'll be finding out who it was who really started off the Beatles revival in the 80s. OK, my next guest is, it's Alan, isn't it? Paul. Paul. Paul's in to tell us, I'll speak to you as well after the travel, Paul, but basically, you're doing a documentary to show who actually started the Beatles revival here in Liverpool.
That's correct. A local couple, Liz and Jim Hughes. They opened the Cavern Mecca in 1981, which is the first Beatles Liverpool museum in Liverpool.
And it was just the pair of them working the socks off. I think it originally started in North John Street in a shop, didn't it?
Correct. Magical Mystery Store, opened in 1977.
And Trevor Hughes was selling stuff there as well,
That's right.
he?
Trevor and Jim Hughes, they owned the shop, and Liz worked in the shop. And then Liz had the idea of opening this museum for local people and international. We did actually get a couple of tourists in the 70s.
This was before the Beatles story as well.
Oh, well before. I mean, they were pioneers, and they sort of kept that legacy alive. At that particular time, sort of, my dad's generation had forgotten about the Beatles, and my generation had moved into punk rock and new wave. So there was a bit of a vacuum from the Beatles' perspective. They were sort of left behind in the 70s. I mean, I think you were actively involved in trying to stop the Cavern getting demolished in 73. Yep. Then in 77, there was the first Beatles convention. I think you were at that with Alan Williams and Bob
they weren't
Willen.
very successful.
No.
None of the Beatles conventions were very successful at all. They had them at the Pickwicks, didn't they?
Mr. Pickwick's was
they
the first one,
Royal Court. They did one at the Royal Court. They did one at the Temple, I think, as well, didn't they?
And, a couple, and so the first main one, which was 1981 at the Adelphi, and Liz and Jim organised that, and that's still going today. 35 years on, the legacy continues.
And the Beatles Mecca was actually in the old Cavern quarters, wasn't it, upstairs? Yeah,
it started off its life in Matthew Street above Antwackies, or the Armadillo Tea Room, as it was known. The first museum was there, and then once the Cavern was rebuilt, Cavern Mecca moved into the new Cavern Quarter, yeah.
And they weren't funded by anybody?
No, they did it off their own bat. They constantly hit brick walls. I mean, when they were trying to get a statue built, they went to see the council, and one particular councillor said the only place for a Beatles statue is in the River Mersey. And that was the sort of message that we were sending out to the world in the mid-70s.
Well, because people were amazed when I mentioned that in the 60s, when the Cavern closed, and we tried to get a fund going to reopen it, the fund raised about 500 quid or something. That's all that was contributed to it. So the interest, as you say, had gone.
Yeah, and they were definitely, they were like the four estranged sons of the city. I think a lot of people of their generation felt as though the Beatles had abandoned Liverpool. So in turn, Liverpool abandoned them.
I can remember doing the first Merseybeat reunion at Bailey's, I think it was. And the Beatles were booed when we mentioned them because they'd left the city, which is a crime.
So Liz and Jim started work on the Cavern Mecca in September 1980, and it opened on the 3rd of January 1981. And 3 weeks prior to opening, John Lennon got assassinated in New York. And that was the big catalyst, I think. I think bereavement has a strange effect on people. And I think the city and the world re-embraced the Beatles, and that sort of kick-started the interest again.
OK. Now, Paul McCartney himself actually thought a great deal of what Jim and
Liz.
Jim and Liz were doing.
He did, and in fact, Paul and Linda invited Jim and Liz up to London to like a little bit of a tea party, gave them a plaque to recognise the efforts that they'd given, and I think give them a bit of money as well to try and keep the thing going. But it was a big struggle at that time. I said they got no assistance, and then unfortunately
the council weren't interested in it.
No, people looking at the Beatles in Liverpool today have got no idea of that vacuum from the 70s and 80s, and the whole idea of the film is to recognise the changes that they did, but also to keep the legacy of Liz and Jim alive.
Yeah.
They kept the Beatles' legacy alive. Now our job is to keep their legacy alive.
And they had to abandon it basically because of ill health, wasn't it?
Yeah, unfortunately Liz suffered a heart attack whilst they were in the Cavern Mecca in the Cavern quarters, and they were struggling financially as well, and they just took the decision to close it, a decision that they definitely didn't want to take.
No. OK, now you've got some unique records, haven't you, of the Cavern Mecca?
Yeah. I first went into the Cavern Mecca in 1981 when it opened. I had a Super 8 cine camera, for the iPhone generation, this was an old sort of wind-up camera that had no sound on it. And I walked around and took some footage, and in the Cavern Mecca documentary I've made, the footage is included in that. And you can see Charlie Lennon, who was John Lennon's uncle. He used to be in there all the time chatting to the fans, you know.
Excellent. So give us more details of where we can go and see this, Al.
It's on the Museum of Liverpool, and it's next Saturday to 1 p.m. At noon. There's a choir singing in the atrium, so if you want to get down early for that. No ticket required. It's a free event. Just turn up and come and watch the show.
We'll be able to get it, because I'd like to have a copy of it. Will it be on sale on DVD eventually or anything?
Probably not on sale, but I will do copies for the people who were actually in the thing, and I can drop a copy off for you, Bill, no problem.
And give Bill and Paul and all the gang at the Cavern, they also recognise the work done by the Cavern Mecca, don't they?
Certainly, yeah. I mean, I think Bill had some good dealings with Jim in the 80s, and they used to swap sort of rare records and that sort of stuff. So, yeah, fond memories, I think.
OK, give us the details again, Paul.
Museum of Liverpool, next Saturday, which is the 12th of November, 1 p.m. It's the new museum down the Pierhead.
OK, I'll see you there, definitely.
Great stuff.
Jim will be there, will he?
He's not too well at the moment, Bill.
Well, no.
Hopefully we can get him there, but he'll be there in spirit.
That'll be great. And well done on documenting this very important part of Beatles history in Liverpool.
Yeah, no, I think it is, and you know, there is a plaque in the cavern itself, and if you go up to the Flanagan's Apple, the pub where it used to be, there is a plaque there, so to recognise it. But the tours and all that don't seem to make a reference to it. You know, they were the first Beatle museum, not the Albert Dock, not Seal Street, Matthew Street.
Thanks a lot, mate.
Cheers, Bill.